James Sanford of the Kalamazoo Gazette calls this movie not exactly out of this world. Phil Villarreal of the Arizona Daily Star says it never quite hits orbit, but packs enough galactic goodies to merit a rental. And Letterboxd user Foamy Rocks, spelled FOAMYROKKS, says, seriously my very favorite childhood film that didn't involve Christmas. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of SpaceCamp.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
I thought that you were going to do it in the Jinx voice.
Greetings,
Starfighters.
Greetings, Starfighters.
Thermal curtain failure.
Jinx, greet Starfighters. It was there, and no, I just wanted to go up straight up like greetings, Starfighters, man, because hey, it's like it's Ruined Childhoods time.
Yeah, it's happening. Before we roll into SpaceCamp time, I want to give a shout out to the Blank Check podcast, who covered Big Trouble in Little China in an episode that came out like 2 days after ours with Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas. So if you want to hear a 3-hour episode of people talking more about Big Trouble in Little China, I highly recommend it. It's a good listen.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. When I saw that they released that one, I was like, come on.
Of course. Can you just let us have this week?
Yeah, right. But I can promise you they're not doing SpaceCamp, considering their podcast focuses on directors who get to a point in their stature that they essentially are handed a blank check by the studio to make whatever they want. And Harry Weiner, who directed SpaceCamp, I don't think ever received a blank check.
No, but I mean, it definitely didn't for SpaceCamp. That is not to say that SpaceCamp is not a quality film, but there was not a blank check involved with this movie. But hey, that's great. I'm glad. You know what? As long as there are podcasts talking about movies. Oh boy, I got to point this out. So I got totally called out. Not called out at work, but
all
right. Brief background for those of you who are new to the show. First of all, bienvenue, welcome.
Hey.
Come on in. Hey, glad to have you. So in my day job, I am a high school teacher, and we have staff meetings, as most companies and places do. Right. And our staff meetings happen to still be virtual, even though we're all in the building for them. I don't know. Okay. But anyway, the point of the story is our administration really likes to they have icebreakers. It was like at the beginning of a meeting, there's always some way that they try to, involve everybody. And this past Wednesday, we had our staff meeting. And so first I had to deal with my laptop dying. Like right as the meeting was started, it was plugged into a docking station that I thought was working, and then anyway, you don't need to hear about my docking station problems. Anyway, I fortunately was able to join the meeting on another computer, and I got set up, up as the principal was going into the warm-ups, and I think it was a would you rather, or like what do you prefer? I forget. Okay. I don't know exactly how we got there because I was dealing with tech issues, but and he randomly the question was books or movies. Now, I'm a language arts teacher. I am a literature teacher. Okay? I don't know what he was expecting when he called on me to speak. I did not volunteer. This was just I'm going to look at random and then, Mr. Wiener, what do you say, books or movies? And I just had this moment of, oh God, my department's going to kill me, but movies and...
What about how about novelizations of movies?
I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. I said I like reading books about movies, books based on movies. I like watching movies based on books. There's a lot of love there for both of them, but I was like, I have loved going to the movies for decades and co-host a movie podcast, and not to throw in a little promo there. But I just felt so, I was like, oh no, I'm going to answer honestly, and I'm going to be judged by my peers. It's fine.
Well,
they haven't said anything.
You know what? Whatever, man.
Whatever, man.
Whatever, man. There's plenty of great novelizations of movies. And like you said, lots of great books about movies. Or filmmakers or actors. So, you know what? It's like, whatever, man.
Oh, yeah. No one actually criticized. It was just funny. It was just funny that he asked, I think, the one language arts teacher who was going to say movies and not books.
Yeah. So I want to give a heads up for our listeners. If you happen to hear, I'll try to edit out if anything does happen. If you do hear any strange noises, it may be because I just adopted a new puppy, and he just 2 days ago, and he was on my lap, but the heat of his body was making like my hand sweat where he was resting his little tiny head. So I just put him in his crate, and he's chilling, but he might get a little, antsy in a little bit. So we'll just see how that goes.
Yeah. Hey, we'll play it by little floppy ear.
By little floopity floppity ears. But we are gonna talk about SpaceCamp on this episode. Dan, do you remember when you first saw SpaceCamp?
I don't remember when I first saw it. I am going to guess that it was on HBO that I saw it first. Now, I do remember seeing it in school. I remember that they showed it.
It's totally an in-school movie.
It was like end of the year or like right before like a break. I want to say it was like 4th or 5th grade. Maybe that they wheeled in the whole cart with the whatever, like 19-inch TV and the VCR and we watched SpaceCamp that I think was taped off HBO. So that was when I saw it. What about you? Do you remember?
It feels like it must have been something like that. I know that it was definitely playing on HBO or like one of the networks that shows movies like WPIX or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Channel 11 version.
But it's funny because when I watched it the other day, and it's been years since I've seen it, I didn't remember it being so, I don't know, like low budge. I mean, I didn't think that it was like I didn't think that they actually went into space to shoot it or anything like that. It's like I didn't assume that it had a huge budget. Although
not
Tom
Apollo 13.
Tom Skerritt's trailer, I know probably was pretty decked out. But I don't know. It was one of those movies where it definitely looked like an episode of Degrassi, but it's got like great. I don't know, like mostly up and coming stars, but there were, some veterans out there.
I mean, yeah, Leah Thompson had definitely done some. Larry B. Scott had done the first Revenge of the Nerds at that point, and Karate Kid.
This was an introducing Tate Donovan movie. So.
Yes, introducing star. I think of Millie DeCherico because Tate Donovan, I believe, was in. I think of Tate Donovan. I think of Memphis Belle.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I think of Memphis Belle. I think of Millie.
Yeah, well, I think about Tate Donovan, I think of Love Potion #9.
Oh,
That was the one where, for me, it was always playing on something, and
I never saw
Comedy
it.
Central or something like that. And he drove a Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, and I thought that it's the same car that Mike Myers drives in So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I just kind of like I thought that was so cool, and he always just seemed like, I don't know, pretty cool. And he's still out there doing stuff. He's,
he was in Argo. That's right.
He
I
was in
like,
Argo, yeah.
It's like, where did I see? I mean, not like incredibly recently. Oh,
Yeah.
he was on the 24. He's a Jersey guy. He's from Tenafly.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Jersey in the house.
Yeah. And you have the late, great Kelly Preston in this. Pour one out.
Pour one out for Kelly Preston.
And she's fantastic in this. And you have Kate Capshaw, who's tremendous. Between this and Temple of Doom, those are like my Kate Capshaw movies.
Yeah.
It's the two of those. And she plays such different characters in them. So it's, I always appreciate that. And of course, Tom Skerritt. And, oh my God, this is the first movie, I believe, with Leaf Phoenix, aka Joaquin Phoenix.
This is the film debut of the boy who would become Joker. One of the boys who would become
Joker. An Oscar winner. Like,
multiple time
right.
nominee, and I think pretty well respected actor who's I mean, he's done some. You think about the just even the last 10 years. You think about Her. And like Her and Inherent Vice.
I mean, right. I mean, The Master. There's just
right.
Look, we're not going to just start naming Joaquin Phoenix movies because we'd be here all night.
But we can.
I'm a big fan. I think he's fantastic, and I also liked I'm Still Here. Putting that out there.
I really, that's one that I have been wanting to watch and have not. That's one that it just, the more and more I think about it, the more interesting it sounds.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I remember when he was going around on like the late night shows, talking about it in character, and his appearance on Letterman was definitely like, what is going on with Joaquin Phoenix? And then you started hearing that it's all about his preparing or like amping up this role that he's playing, this different version of himself for I'm Still Here. So anyway.
Good stuff. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, I know what you're saying about the effects, but I also, I think that it's also, when you're watching it now and you're used to.
Well, I wasn't actually referring to the effects. I was really referring to just the way that like the on Earth stuff is shot. And for anybody who's unfamiliar with the movie SpaceCamp, I'll give a synopsis soon to explain what I'm talking about. But the way that the camera moves and the way that things are lit just felt very Degrassi. And I don't know. I don't know what kind of cameras they were using or what the deal was, but it just kind of had that feel to it. Certainly hadn't had any negative impact because of the score, because it's a John Williams score. Definitely not his most famous, but it's certainly John Williams nonetheless. But yeah, why don't I get into a synopsis and then we can really launch into it.
Oh.
All right. You ready?
Of course.
Andy has longed to go into outer space since she was a little kid. But now that she's grown up and is regularly denied that opportunity to command an actual shuttle in favor of lesser qualified men, she continues to dream. When she brings up her woes with her astronaut husband, he reminds her that she is now committed to instructing teens at that summer's space camp. This is where we meet the kids in her group. Catherine is an overachieving teen who, like Andy, dreams about being the first female shuttle commander. Tish is brilliant and memorizes everything she reads, but she's in the body and spirit of a Valley Girl type. Rudy loves science, but he's not the best at it. Kevin has a devil-may-care attitude and is only at space camp because his father gave him a Jeep in exchange for attending. And then there's preteen Max, a Star Wars-obsessed kid who talks his way into being part of the older kids group. It's at space camp where he befriends Jinx, a $27 million NASA project that's not flight safe, so he essentially just helps out the engineers. But with an over-literal AI, Jinx has a tendency to get on people's nerves, except for Max, that is. When Jinx hears Max say that he wants to go to space, he takes it upon himself to hack NASA controls and create a problem in which Max could actually be sent to space. His plan works when Andy's crew has the opportunity to sit in an actual shuttle during an engine test. After Jinx's plan gets put into place, the NASA ground crew has two options: let the shuttle crash, killing Andy and the kids, or launch the shuttle and send them into space. Since this movie is for children, they get sent to space. NASA can bring them back to Earth from the ground, but there's one problem. There's not enough oxygen to last them that long. They remember that there's a satellite nearby that has some oxygen tanks, so they take a slight detour. When Andy does a spacewalk to get the tanks, she realizes that she's too big to fit in and get the tanks. That's where Max comes in. He manages to get the tanks free with his itty-bitty body. After a few more snafus that take Andy temporarily out of the equation, the kids manage to solve the problems and get the shuttle in at a new window of re-entry. So Andy is played by Kate Capshaw. Her husband Zach is played by Tom Skerritt. Leah Thompson plays Catherine. Tate Donovan plays Kevin. Larry B. Scott plays Rudy. Kelly Preston is Tish. And Leaf Phoenix, as he was known at the time, plays Max. So, Dan, what do you think about this movie? I mean, what was your impression when you were a kid, and what did you think of it now?
So I remember liking it when I was a kid. I was really into space. I feel like most kids were, especially kids who watched like Star Wars a ton.
Right.
It's a good thing 20th Century Fox found ways to, market that movie in other movies, because otherwise who would have ever known?
Right.
Yeah. So I liked it as a kid, and I was really worried. It was one of those movies that I was like, am I going to watch this and just kind of like lose any nostalgia I have for it? And quite the opposite happened.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed watching it, and despite the effects, like when they're in space and you see the space shuttle, I was just like, I think they just went to the Air and Space Museum and bought one of those.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Every kid has one of those.
It's like, that is a toy space shuttle that they have in front of a blue screen. Got it.
No. Exactly. And what I liked about it was I felt like I got more of it. Like when I watched it at like age 9, I didn't get I'm guessing that they were intentional nods to like 2001, right. Jinx kind of sabotaging things
right.
in a similar way to Hal, though with much better intentions.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Even like a little, I definitely think there was a little Star Wars or Star Trek nod, because there was a line about like, I'm not a doctor. Something like that. And I was like, oh, it's like Star Trek. But also I noticed some other things about it that definitely didn't stand out then, like just the strong female leads between Kate Capshaw, Leah Thompson, and Kelly Preston as well. But Leah Thompson and Kate Capshaw are really like the two main characters.
Right. Totally.
So, and having it be the story, like starting with Kate Capshaw, with Andy as a kid who's dreaming about going to space.
I'm going up.
Yeah. It really, watching it now from that perspective, also being the, a father of a daughter.
Yeah.
And recognizing the importance of it. of that, like, follow your dreams, you can do anything. It meant more to me watching it. It also, it also, sorry, there was something else. I also I appreciated that as I was watching the movie and just kind of being more aware of genre and everything, I was like, oh wow, it's a summer camp movie meets a space movie.
No, I mean, it's
not in the same way Meatballs 2 was.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about those movies sometime.
Google Meatballs 2 if you don't know what I'm talking
even
about.
just Google image search. That's all you really need.
Yeah.
So I totally hear what you're saying, and I think that you're right. The idea of a summer camp movie and a space movie combined on paper makes a lot of sense, and the fact that there is such a thing as SpaceCamp, they shot this at least mostly on location in Huntsville, Alabama, where actual SpaceCamp exists, which I only really know about because it was a prize on Double Dare and other Nickelodeon game shows all the time.
Yes.
And that always made it feel to me like it was this ultra special thing that was regular people can't go there. You have to be exclusive. A game show winner. You have to find a red flag and snot in order to go and go to, it's the finest astronauts get their start by finding a red flag and a giant hamburger.
Once you've done that, the space is no longer the undiscovered country.
That's right. So, and then also going back to what you're saying about the female leads, and like I said in the synopsis, Andy is, you learn towards the beginning, this is after the, when she was a little kid, but she's lamenting about how she was passed up to be in this next launch in favor of this guy who's a total idiot. And Dan, what year did this come out?
86.
So 86, that's right. Yeah. So 86, we're still, not that there aren't female astronauts, but it's just still in any industry, women getting passed up for guys who don't know anything. Qualified women.
At that point, for United States astronauts, though, you could name both of them.
Totally. Yeah,
and,
but it's things
haven't
still haven't changed. And I don't just mean I'm not just talking about NASA. I just mean anywhere. I'm not saying anything shocking.
No. But you're also talking about, this is 35 years ago, and it hasn't changed.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Dan, what?
Oh, did you enjoy watching it?
I loved it. It was great. And it was funny because I was watching it with Laura, my wife, for our listeners, and she was like, all right, I'm just going to go to bed early. And I put it on, and she happened to catch the beginning, and she watched the entire thing and could not take her eyes off it. And not because it was bad and the kind of bad that you can't stop watching, but it was the way that she and I described it to each other was it's not a good movie, but it's a great movie. It's not well made. It's there's some things about it that just are whatever, come on. But
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because it pulls the feels out of you, and it just works.
It does. You suspend enough disbelief that the plot holes really shouldn't make a difference. And if you find yourself thinking about the whole logic holes,
right,
you shouldn't be watching this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. It's just a really enjoyable hour and a half, whatever it is.
You know what I found interesting was as I was watching it, and of course, you and I are both big fans of the movie Parenthood.
We are.
One of the only other few movies where Joaquin Phoenix is credited as Leaf Phoenix. But I noticed a parallel in it that in both movies, Lee Phoenix is hiding something in a closet.
I knew
that
you were
he does
going to say
not want
that.
others to find. In this,
Wow.
it's a robot. In Parenthood, it's porn.
You may have been the first person to find that parallel.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I don't know. Yeah, probably. I might be the last person to find it too.
Well, but I'll tell you what. Here's another parallel. They both need a father figure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Max has been slapping the salami.
No, he's just been fixing NASA robots.
Yeah. We really don't get much about Max's family. Like, we don't.
No, the only person whose family we really find a little bit about is Kevin's, Tate Donovan's character.
Kevin's and Catherine's.
Kevin's and Catherine's.
You see her father briefly.
Briefly, yeah. Yeah, so it's like everybody else is just kind of like they appear. And
Rudy
really
mentions his parents, but like you don't know anything about them from that mention.
Yeah, I thought that Larry B. Scott was really great in this, especially since like the only other frame of reference I have for him is the Revenge of the Nerds movies. And it's interesting to just see him play a very different role. And, you know, to see his range, it makes me think that, you know, it's just unfortunate that I haven't seen much else from him. I'm trying to think if there was I'm looking at what else he's been in. Fear of a Black Hat. The Karate Kid, he is one of the first competitors to lose to Daniel in the finale. So it's like he's barely in it. He's in Iron Eagle. He's really not in much.
Oh, okay. All right. Iron Eagle. Yeah, I've never seen it, but
well,
Oh, Extreme Prejudice with I want to say Nick Nolte.
Yeah. But I don't know his capacity in those films, like, you know, how big his character was. But I thought that he was really great in this. And Kelly Preston is so good. I always loved Tisha's character, this like unassumingly really smart person. And they kind of have a lot of fun with the fact that she remembers everything she reads. And the way that she's just very passive about how smart she is. Is really fun. And it's just like, I'm not saying, so at first she's doing Morse code and she's just doing SOS, which like everybody knows. But then she's like busting out like full sentences in Morse code, like rapidly. And it's just like, what? Oh my God, that's amazing. Which, by the way, also in the NASA Command Center, Dan, do you know which comedian has an appearance in this NASA control room?
Oh, wait. Oh, shit. I know. I was like, I definitely was like, oh yeah, Terry O'Quinn. It's Locke from Lost.
Yeah.
Who's not a comedian, but I feel like I definitely recognize. So I want to say Rick Overton just because of the time period, but
no, Doug Benson. Who at the time was really just background acting. He was in Blade Runner in the background, Captain EO, and I saw him in this and I was just like, is that Doug Benson? And then I like got to pause it and Google it, and the article that came up was like, Doug Benson is unrecognizable in SpaceCamp. And I'm like, no, he's not, because I just recognized him in SpaceCamp.
Now, did you say that he was also in Captain EO?
Yes.
So Captain EO, for those who don't know, was a 3D film produced by George Lucas,
right?
Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
A mid to late 80s Michael Jackson. And it filmed on the soundstage next door to SpaceCamp.
Really?
Yes, I was reading up on SpaceCamp a little bit, and yeah, because it was really so. And then I'm not sure if SpaceCamp was originally supposed to be released. It was released summer of '86, but I think it was originally supposed to be released in like February '86. Okay. And then the Challenger tragedy
Right, yeah.
occurred, and it would not have been in good taste. And actually, the Challenger explosion happened because of the same system error.
Was it
The same error,
really?
the over, like, yeah, the
The thermal curtain failure?
yeah, yeah. I believe so.
Oh my god. Uh you think they would have like recut the movie to at least just change what it actually is? Oh man.
I mean, it was done. Like, the movie was done.
Yeah.
and
Oh boy.
and yeah, I mean, it would have been a lot more costly, I guess. I mean, there
They didn't
might
have
have
a
been
blank
other
check?
things that they. Well, let's see. Okay, so the it was the failure was caused. It was the there was a joint in the rocket booster that failed at liftoff. So
Okay.
yeah, it might not have been exactly
No, not a thermal
the
curtain
same.
failure. Well, right,
No.
because when they were doing like the simulation on the computer of what would happen if it, if it launched without the other engine firing up, then it was reminiscent of what happened to the Challenger, at least in the computer simulation.
It was definitely, yeah, close enough.
Yeah. Ugh. So, it makes sense that they would delay it. It also might make sense why the movie wasn't, a high performer. I don't know what the push was to distribute this, but if the push was to distribute it into elementary school classrooms, they did an excellent job.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So Dan, I'm also curious. What was your knowledge of actual SpaceCamp around this time, or what, just when you were younger?
just this movie.
Really? Okay. And I'm just saying that because the only frame of reference I have is just those children's game shows. But Dan, I've got a bit of a surprise for you. My friend Jenna Kinley went to SpaceCamp as a kid, and I had an opportunity to chat with her about it. You want to listen to it?
I'd love to. I want to hear this.
Hey, Jenna.
Hey, John.
How's everything going?
It's great. How are you?
Good. I am so excited to talk to you about actual real life SpaceCamp.
Yep.
When did you attend SpaceCamp?
I actually went 3 years in a row. So I was in third grade the first time. And when you're that age, you have to go with a parent. So my dad, who I realize now is the best dad in the world because of this, went with me. Then I went in fourth grade and I went again in fifth grade.
Wow. Okay. And what is it that you actually do at SpaceCamp?
It's a good question. So I'll talk about the normal program, not the like kid parent program, because that one's abbreviated. But you go, you stay in these dormitories that are kind of like designed like they're supposed to be spaceships. Like they give you the full experience of making you feel like you're an astronaut. I almost said an athlete. So you go and you go through what they call astronaut training. And so there are a couple of standard things that you do. Like, I can't even remember the name of it, but if you've ever seen this, it's like a gyroscope and they put a human body
Right.
on it. It just flips around. So you get to do that. And some of the older camps, you get to go in a massive water tank. So you experience weightlessness. They train you on
Cool.
procedure of what it would be like for different roles to actually do like a launch and a mission. Um, Most of the time you're just doing things that go into orbit, but occasionally you'll do like a mission to Mars. Then they had this whole room that I think if I went back now and looked at it, I'd realize how campy it was, but it was supposed to be Mars. And so you just kind of bop around in there and they've got little missions for you. I will say it felt very scientific. It felt like they weren't just trying to be
Cool.
campy. They wanted to give you the full real experience, but you also get to go tour where they manufactured the majority of the rockets at the beginning of the space program because it's in Huntsville, Alabama. So
Right. And I was going to ask you about that because you don't necessarily live near Huntsville, Alabama,
Nope.
and you didn't at the time, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I live in
Yeah.
Indianapolis, and so my dad would, he'd pack up the car and drive down there. Yeah.
So it wasn't just like you went there because it was the closest thing and, something for the kid to do.
No, and I think I would be willing to bet it's probably not inexpensive in the grand scheme of summer camps as well. So again, mad props to my parents for
Right.
letting me do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I first heard about Space Camp because of shows like Double Dare, where going to Space Camp was like a
Mhm.
prize. So I always got the impression that like it was a very kind of exclusive, not easy to think, not easy thing to do, like normally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat that went, and it was. I'm trying to just do some mental math. So that was like what, early '90s, maybe, that you were there.
Yeah, so 93 through 96, thereabouts.
Okay. Yeah. So I wonder how much more advanced it's got since then, or if it's still kind of the same. What were the instructors like? What was their background, if you can remember?
I don't have a lot of recollection about what their backgrounds were. They were college age kids. It very much, they gave you that full camp vibe that you get when you go to like sleepaway camp,
Right.
and you were dedicated to one counselor. And you had teams, so you were part of a team of, I want to say like 12 other kids. So
Uh huh.
that's how you operated, was in those types of pods. They were really nice. I can't recall any one of them making me sad.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, you have to expect that there's probably you have to be some sort of nerd to be an instructor, counselor there, whatever they call themselves. And I'm also curious to know, first of all, have you seen the movie Space Camp?
I have.
Okay. That came out, maybe like 10 years before you started going. Was that in any way something that inspired you to go? Or was it something that like you saw after and were just like, oh, no, 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 no. It was nothing like that.
I saw it after, and no, it wasn't anything like that for obvious reasons that I won't spoil
Yeah.
if you plan on talking about it. Um,
Well, yeah.
but it definitely felt like a dissimilar experience than what I had. But that's a
Hmm.
10-year gap, so who knows?
That's true. They did film, I mean, at least some of it actually at the
Mhm.
Huntsville Space Camp location. So there must have been some things that seemed familiar, but certainly nobody actually getting launched into space or any sort of like crazy robots that befriended little children.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was not my experience, but I've started to think maybe I need to go back and give it another try.
So one thing that I did notice is that in the movie Space Camp, there's a practice shuttle that they go into that seems to be called The Right Stuff. And you had told me that you were the winner of the Right Stuff award at Space
I
Camp. What was
was.
that?
I'm not entirely sure what the parameters were, but essentially it was someone who was really focused on teamwork, who was positive, who really worked hard. So I must have impressed somebody, I guess, in one of my times there. There is a spaceship that you get to work in, but it's not a real spaceship, and I don't recall what the name was, but I feel like they tended to have actual spaceship names like Discovery or what have you.
Right. Cool. Any other like favorite moments that you might want to share or things that maybe you didn't like about Space Camp?
No, I
I
mean,
know it's thinking back quite a long
it
ways, so
is.
it's okay if you can't come up with
It's
anything.
been just a couple of years. No, one thing this is really random, but they do have a space shuttle there with the boosters, and it's really in the center of the campus, or at least it was back then. And so for your closing ceremony, that they'd set up a stage underneath it, and that's where you had your closing ceremony, and that's where I got my Right Stuff award. Unfortunately, I think it's
Yeah.
fallen by the wayside, but it was a cool medal. It was like a big old plastic medal. So,
Uh,
yeah,
I would have cherished that for my entire
I
life,
know.
but here we are. I do not have the plastic medal. Some thrift store sold it to somebody a long time ago, I'm sure.
It's gotta be on eBay. I'm gonna start
Yeah,
searching.
I'm sure it is. Uh, Cool. Well, thanks so much for talking to me about Space Camp. It's such a fascinating idea to me. There's so many different types of camp experiences for kids, and it's kind of neat that there's one for space. And clearly you've gone into the field and you're what kind of astronaut are you now?
I'm a branding astronaut, so if you want me to help you figure out your brand identity in space, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, now's the time for that. So, you know, might be a good way to flex that Right Stuff Award muscle in your resume in case you're ever looking.
Yeah, I'm gonna update LinkedIn right now.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. And yeah, we're gonna get back to the rest of the show.
Awesome.
So that was my friend Jenna. She's on Twitter at the Jenna B, the Jenna BEE. And I put out a call on like an Instagram story to be like, do I know anybody who's been to Space Camp? And I got some interesting responses. Jenna wrote, and she was just like, I went 3 times and won the Right Stuff Award. And I was like, we have to talk.
I wonder if you get the Right Stuff Award if your parents pay 3 years of tuition.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they're like, we better get one of the plastic models out of the box. No,
Yeah.
No. But seriously, not to that is really cool.
Yeah. So I'm very appreciative of Jennifer taking the time to talk with me about that. She's really cool, very funny person.
Imagine
yeah.
you. Oh, actually, no, never forget. I'm not going to say what I was just about to say. I'm gonna wait.
Oh, you're gonna wait. Okay. Yeah. So, Dan, it is the year 2021. It is the future. If you're in 86 Space Camp world, what would you do if you were given a blank check to do something with the Space Camp property?
Well, so first of all, I should note that there is a planned remake,
Right.
at Disney Plus.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm going to interject here really quick. I was also attempting to get Streeter Seidel to have a chat with us. He worked with our friend and past guest Jeff Rubin over at College Humor. Jeff graciously sent an email to him to check in to see if he'd be willing to just answer a few questions about what it's like to, clearly he's working on it, and he's also doing other reboots and remakes. Inspector Gadget was one. I forget what the other one was, but he's currently a writer on SNL, so I think he's a little busy. But
Home Alone.
Home Alone, right?
Home Alone reboot there. But I saw his name on this and thought like, man, all right, so he's actually doing what we just talk about on
I know
childhoods.
And maybe when it's not in SNL season, we can try to talk to him about just what it's like to be rebooting these types of properties, because I'm kind of fascinated about that. And thank you to Jeff Rubin for reaching out on our behalf. But unfortunately, just not a good time. SNL is a bit of a demanding job.
Yeah, but so we should all be on the lookout for that Space Camp remake coming to Disney Plus. Now, of course, this is now more speculation about what it might be. I also have some other ideas that it probably almost definitely is not any of those. But one of my first ideas when we were going to be talking about Space Camp was just thinking about privatized space travel and just the evolution of that, and how you could do a Space Camp remake where it's like it's not run through NASA and it's privatized, and maybe there's like a NASA consultant because they're like, okay, you could do space travel, but you have to have like, there's got to be a NASA, and the NASA consultant is like, no, you can't let them do this. This is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. If you let them do that. And then whoever, like Elon Musk or whoever, whatever that character is, it should be Oscar Isaac reprising his role from Ex Machina.
Oh yeah.
No. But whoever's like, yeah, no, this is like, please, I have better people than NASA because I pay more and blah blah blah, money, and then the kids end up in space.
Dan, have you watched the Showtime series Moonbase 8?
I have not.
Have
yet.
we talked about this on this show?
Yes, you have. You've mentioned it. I had not had a Showtime subscription when that came up.
For anybody who is unfamiliar with Moonbase 8, it's with John C. Reilly, Fred Armisen, and Tim Heidecker. And they play these, guys who, for whatever reason, would love to go up and live on the moon. And they are part of this NASA program where they live out in like the desert somewhere, and in this moon base essentially and they have to act as if they are living on the moon. If they go outside, they have to wear all the suits and all the stuff and everything, and they're basically doing all these experiments to see. And then the idea is that NASA, who's observing everybody, says, okay, you're going up next week, and then you're going to be living on the moon. And it's just these three dummies and who never get called up. They've been there so super long. And so when you were just talking about, that kind of thing, it does make me think that it's almost like an adult space camp, which I know does exist. One of the responses I got from somebody on Instagram was about an adult space camp. Unfortunately, I only had a chance to talk with Jenna, but I got some great responses. But yeah, there is adult space camp.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that sounds. I'm going to check out Moonbase 8 as we are
Dan,
back
love it.
Back onto the Showtime. So
it's so good.
But I'm gonna check that out. But one of my ideas was basically to remake Space Camp, but to add in with kids, not with an adult, not an adult Space Camp, but to have a Space Camp remake, but have it maybe be a little bit more plausible that there's a bunch of kids on a spacecraft that accidentally gets launched into space because it's privately owned, and it's just this megalomaniac who's like, I could do whatever I want. I paid for this. And
well, there were just some reports that came out the other day talking about SpaceX and how they apparently are very lax about some of the safety. And so it's extremely plausible.
Exactly. So,
no. It wasn't SpaceX. It was Blue Origin. The Bezos one.
Well, yeah. I mean, it didn't look like it had any protection last time it flew. Anyway, so there was that idea. I had another couple of fun little ideas, like I guess a Space Camp escape room type deal. And it actually wouldn't be a movie, just to kind of do a. In fact, there are, I'm sure, escape rooms that have these kind of
space themed.
You're launched into space, and you have to, if you don't figure out the stuff, you're going to run out of oxygen.
Yeah.
So, have you ever done an escape room?
You know what? It's funny. I've done one, and I got an email today from the place where I did it, saying that after 6 years, they're retiring that room. And I was like, okay, I don't care. It was a Sherlock Holmes themed one. And I was with some people who are actually all lawyers. And I'm like the dummy ding dong in the room. And I just kind of started pulling on things on the wall until and then it was oh, we just skipped 1,000 steps because I just happened to find this clue.
That happened to us in the one time we did an escape room. We were in Belgium.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I mean, it was it was in English.
Okay.
but it was, you know, it was a Cold War. We picked Cold War, and it was
wow.
like, it was this lab, and that like the Soviets were going to release this, you know, toxic gas in the city of Ghent in Belgium. And, you know, we had to, and that basically is what happened, where we like figured something. It wasn't me, but, you know, found something, and then ended up, and like afterwards, the person who was running it was just like, yeah, no, I was watching, and like you managed to find this without finding this, that, and the other thing. And which was good, because our time, like we finished the room, but like with like a minute to spare. It was like down to the wire. It was like really suspenseful as we're like mixing all these things from test tubes.
Oh my God.
It was really cool. It was really cool, but not exactly a COVID
right.
safe thing. So anyway, there's that.
I just wanted to quickly mention, in the one that I did, there was one where there was like a combination like padlock, but it was instead of like numbers or whatever, it had like north, south, east, and west, and it had to be like a combination of those. And I just like guessed it on my first try, and the thing just like unlocked. And everyone, my group was so mad because they're trying to be all like nerds about it, and I'm just like, I don't know, I just kind of like figured this out.
But you're like Sean Connery in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when Indy's looking for like the secret passage, and he just sits on a chair and leans.
Right.
Sometimes I find if you just sit back and relax, the answer presents itself. And
totally.
Yeah, that was you. That was you in the escape room.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other idea actually now involves an adult space camp, because I'm revising it on the spot. But it was basically where somebody who sees the movie Space Camp and loves it and is like, that's the experience I want. They go to Space Camp and they figure out a way to rig it so that they end up getting put into space. But as I was listening to you talk about adult space camp, I was like, that would be so much better with adult space camp.
Yeah.
Where someone's like, yeah, no, this is what I've wanted all this time. And, you know, I've been saving my whole life. I've been saving for the last 35 years. And
he won it on Double Dare. Like, but the information just got like lost in the mail. Finally got it.
Lost in the mail, and you know, he's like, oh, it doesn't expire. There's no expiration date.
Right. No. Yeah. You know, he got that red flag out of the giant taco just in time, and here we are all these years later. So I think that I might have talked about my idea on a past episode, and this has less to do with the movie than it does have to do with actual space camp. But in a past life, I worked in reality television, and I was pitching some reality show ideas around, and one of them was called One Small Step, and it was a reality show about space camp. And what's interesting is that, you know, there's shows like For All Mankind, and there's so many other shows where they have like you know, bits of the, you know, all the quotes and everything. And I don't know if One Small Step has been used for something like that, but it's like, it seems so perfect for a children's space thing, because they take small steps.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know that this one was kind of like from the vault, but that's what I've got. It's the only, you know, it's like they're making a remake, and I am excited about it, and I will watch it. I appreciate that there is some respect for this weird movie that was made in the mid 80s. And, you know, I'm glad that we're here talking about it. You know, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I check to see if other podcasts have talked about movies that we're doing, and to see if maybe, you know, I'll sometimes listen to them to see if there's any insight or any information that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And I've only found one other podcast that have been talking about this one, and it was people who had never seen it before and were, you know, coming to everything with fresh eyes. So it's nice to be able to talk about this and for there to be more podcast representation about SpaceCamp. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm curious to know. So, shoot us an email, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. If you also experienced this movie growing up, particularly in the elementary school setting.
Yeah.
Was this like I want to know how many people like really connect this movie to watching a movie in school, having a movie day in elementary school and getting to watch this movie and, they say shit a couple of times and you're like, oh my God, we're in school and they're saying shit.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I agree. Yeah. Hit us up, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. We have a link tree with all of our social media, our TeePublic store. Working on some new merch, just taking some time. But feel free to check out our TeePublic store and show us some love that way. It helps us make the show. And Dan, do you mind if I tell everyone what our next movie is?
Why, no, I don't.
This is a first. We're 137 episodes in. It's a Ruined Childhood's
Every
first.
now and again, we gotta throw a curveball, and do something a little different. So go ahead, John.
Well, it's interesting you say curveball because this movie does have a very fascinating baseball scene. And I
didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that I have a new puppy, and the new puppy's name is Rufio. That's right. We're doing Hook on the next episode. Steven Spielberg classic starring Robin Williams, Charlie Korsmo. Is that right?
Charlie Korsmo. Yeah.
Charlie Korsmo. Yeah. So Julia Roberts and
Dustin Hoffman. I love how you're like, sorry, Robin Williams and Charlie Korsmo. End of story.
Charlie Korsmo.
Maggie Smith, Bob Hoskins.
Right. Yeah. Glenn Close. We'll talk about that one next time.
David Crosby.
Yeah, that's right. Lots of great cameos in this. I mean, I heard that Steven Spielberg has a lot of friends. So,
he knows people.
Well,
like
Dan,
Kate Capshaw.
Like Kate Capshaw, biblically.
Are they still married?
I don't know. Anyway, Dan, as you experience a thermal curtain failure and get launched into space, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey, John.